Have you ever noticed something deeply disturbing about our modern world? We live in an age where the dumbest voices get the loudest applause, where viral nonsense is rewarded while genuine wisdom is completely ignored. You scroll through your feed and watch people celebrate ignorance, glorify superficiality, and turn intellectual laziness into a badge of honor. Meanwhile, the profound insights that could actually transform your life are buried under layers of digital noise. Here's what's really messed up. We're not just accidentally becoming dumber, we're being systematically programmed to embrace stupidity. The attention economy has turned your mind into a commodity, and guess what? Complex thoughts don't sell. Deep thinking doesn't generate clicks. So the entire system rewards the exact opposite of what makes us truly human. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't some random cultural shift. This is the fulfillment of warnings made by history's greatest thinkers. Nietzsche predicted the rise of what he called the last man, being perfectly content with mediocrity. Jung saw how societies would reject depth. Socrates understood that fake knowledge is more dangerous than admitted ignorance. These philosophers saw this coming from centuries away. Before we dive deep, hit that like button if you're ready to challenge everything you think you know about intelligence in the digital age, and make sure to subscribe because we're going to completely dismantle the lies you've been told about wisdom and what it means to think for yourself. Stay until the end, because I'm going to reveal the one ancient practice that every great thinker used to develop genuine wisdom, a practice that's been completely abandoned by modern society. When you understand and apply it, you'll have a massive advantage in a world full of distracted, surface-level thinkers. Listen, there's something deeply unsettling happening right under our noses, and most folks don't even realize it. We're living in what experts call the attention economy, where your focus has literally become the most valuable commodity on earth. Every app, every platform, every piece of content is specifically designed to hijack your mind and keep it locked in perpetual mental junk food consumption. This isn't accident, it's a calculated system that profits from your distraction. You know what's really wild? We've willingly handed over our most precious resource, our ability to think deeply, in exchange for instant gratification and social validation. Your great-grandfather could sit quietly for hours, lost in contemplation or genuine conversation. But today, most people can't focus on a single task for more than 8 seconds without reaching for their phone. We've traded gourmet meals for cotton candy, sweet for a moment, but nutritionally bankrupt. The tragic irony is that we're more connected than ever, yet wisdom feels increasingly rare in our modern society. We have access to all human knowledge at our fingertips, but somehow we're getting dumber by the day. Information without contemplation is just noise. When was the last time you sat with a difficult idea long enough to truly understand it? This constant intellectual motion without progress is exactly what ancient philosophers warned us about. What's happening isn't just about technology, it's about a fundamental shift in how we value human consciousness itself. We've created a culture that rewards quick reactions over thoughtful responses, hot takes over cool analysis, and viral content over valuable insights. And here's the kicker. The more distracted you become, the more vulnerable you are to sophisticated digital manipulation that. Here's something that'll make your skin crawl. The systems running your favorite platforms aren't just showing you what you want to see, they're actively programming you to become a simpler, more predictable version of yourself. These digital puppeteers have figured out that complex thoughts don't generate clicks, but outrage, fear, and tribal thinking do. So guess what gets amplified? The most emotionally charged, intellectually lazy content rises to the top. Let me paint you a picture. Sarah posts a thoughtful, well-researched analysis of a complex issue, gets 12 likes. Brad shares an inflammatory meme with zero factual basis, gets 12,000 shares and sparks a comment war. The system learns that Brad's content creates more engagement, so it shows similar content to millions of users. Meanwhile, Sarah's wisdom disappears into the void. We're literally training artificial intelligence to make us more artificial and less intelligent. The most insidious part? This digital manipulation doesn't just affect what you see, it rewires how you think. When you're constantly fed bite-sized, emotionally triggering content, your brain starts to prefer that format. You lose your taste for complexity and nuance. It's like developing a sugar addiction that makes vegetables taste bland. Your neural pathways reorganize around instant gratification and surface-level thinking. But here's what really gets me fired up. We're voluntarily participating in our own intellectual dumbing down. Every mindless scroll, every reaction without reflection, every share without verification is a vote for superficiality over substance. The ancient Greeks had a word for this kind of unexamined life, and they didn't consider it worth living. Speaking of Greeks, there's an old guy named Socrates who saw this coming from 2,400 years away. Socrates dropped the most devastating truth bomb in human history when he said, "I know that I know nothing." This wasn't false modesty, it was revolutionary wisdom. The man understood that true intelligence begins with recognizing the vast ocean of your own ignorance. But look around today, and you'll see exactly the opposite mentality ruling our world. Everyone's an expert after reading a Twitter thread. Everyone's got the definitive answer after watching a YouTube video. Here's the brutal reality check. Modern society has turned us into intellectual peacocks, strutting around with borrowed opinions and recycled thoughts. You scroll through social media and see people confidently declaring positions on complex issues they learned about 5 minutes ago. This isn't knowledge, it's intellectual cosplay. Socrates would have had a field day with our comment sections, systematically dismantling every overconfident claim with his famous questions. The difference between Socratic wisdom and modern digital knowledge is like the difference between being a master chef and being really good at ordering takeout. Socrates spent his entire life learning how to think, while we spend our lives learning what to think. He understood that wisdom comes from questioning everything, especially your own beliefs. We've built a culture that rewards certainty over curiosity, answers over questions. The most dangerous part of this modern illusion is how it makes us intellectually lazy. Why struggle with difficult concepts when you can just Google the answer? Why develop critical thinking when you can find someone online who agrees with you? This convenience is killing our capacity for wisdom. We're becoming a species that knows how to access information but has forgotten how to transform information into insight. And this shift from substance to appearance runs even deeper. Welcome to the era where being perceived as successful matters more than actually being successful, where looking smart trumps being smart, and where your personal brand carries more weight than your personal character. We've created a society obsessed with the performance of life rather than the living of it. It's like we're all actors in a play where everyone forgot there's supposed to be an audience, we're just performing for other performers. Talk about method acting gone wrong. Think about this for a second. When was the last time you did something meaningful that nobody would ever know about? When did you last pursue wisdom for its own sake, without thinking about how it would look on your LinkedIn profile? Our entire culture has become a highlight reel competition where depth, struggle, and genuine growth happen behind the scenes while we showcase only the glossy, filtered final products. The tragedy is that all this performing is exhausting and completely disconnected from what actually makes life meaningful. VIKTOR FRANKL, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, understood that meaning comes from serving something larger than yourself, not from being seen serving something larger than yourself. But we flipped the script. Today, if you don't document your good deed, did it really happen? If you read a profound book but don't post about it, are you really growing? Here's the kicker. This performance culture creates what I call wisdom theater people going through the motions of being thoughtful without actually doing the inner work. They share inspiring quotes without embodying the principles. They collect philosophical knowledge like Pokemon cards while their actual lives remain shallow and reactive. Carl Jung saw this coming decades ago, and he had some pretty unsettling things to say about what happens when cultures collectively abandon. Carl Jung understood something profound about human nature that we've conveniently forgotten. What we reject in ourselves doesn't disappear, it goes underground and eventually controls us from the shadows. And brother, our collective shadow is massive right now. We've culturally repressed our need for depth, contemplation, and genuine self-reflection, and that repressed energy has transformed into its opposite, an obsessive worship of superficiality and instant gratification. Jung called this the collective unconscious, and he predicted that when entire societies deny essential human needs, those needs would manifest in destructive ways. Look around you, we're living in that prediction. Our culture's rejection of introspection has created a generation addicted to external validation. Our fear of solitude has driven us into constant digital stimulation. Our avoidance of difficult emotions has made us emotionally illiterate. The most troubling part is how this collective shadow expresses itself through projection. Instead of facing our own intellectual laziness, we blame the system. Instead of acknowledging our own contribution to the problem, we point fingers at other people. Instead of doing the difficult work of genuine self-examination, we consume content about how enlightened we already are. Everyone's pointing at everyone else's problems while remaining completely blind to their own participation. What Jung understood, and what we've forgotten, is that real transformation requires facing the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. The wisdom you're seeking isn't hiding in some external source. It's buried under layers of defense mechanisms and comfortable lies you tell yourself. This collective avoidance of depth isn't just a modern problem. It's the fulfillment of a darker prophecy made by another philosopher who saw exactly where this path leads. Nietzsche dropped the ultimate mic drop over a century ago when he described what he called the last man, and folks, we're living in that nightmare right now. The last man isn't evil or malicious, he's something far worse, completely mediocre and perfectly content with his mediocrity. He seeks comfort above all else, avoids anything that might disturb his peace, and has absolutely no desire to grow, struggle, or become something greater. Sound familiar? Nietzsche predicted that humanity would eventually choose comfort over growth, security over adventure, and conformity over individualism. The last man doesn't want to be exceptional. He wants to blend in, follow trends, and never think too hard about anything. He consumes entertainment instead of creating meaning. He seeks validation instead of truth. This isn't just a philosophical concept anymore. It's a documentary about how most people actually live their lives today. Here's what's really chilling about Nietzsche's prophecy. The last man doesn't know he's trapped because his cage is comfortable. He's got Netflix, DoorDash, social media validation, and endless distractions. Why would he want anything more challenging? The last man represents the death of human aspiration, not through oppression, but through voluntary surrender to mediocrity. It's like choosing to live in a luxurious prison and calling it freedom. The most unsettling part? Nietzsche warned that the last man would be proud of his smallness. He'd celebrate his lack of ambition as being authentic. He'd defend his intellectual laziness as not taking things too seriously. We've created a culture where spiritual and intellectual mediocrity isn't just tolerated, it's encouraged and rewarded. And this systematic avoidance of challenge has killed something essential in human nature. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. When was the last time you sat in complete silence for more than 5 minutes without feeling the urge to check your phone, turn on music, or find some other form of stimulation? If you're like most people, you literally can't remember. We've become a species that's afraid of our own thoughts, terrified of solitude, and completely addicted to external input. Contemplation used to be considered the highest human activity. The great thinkers throughout history, Buddha, Marcus Aurelius, Confucius, Descartes, all understood that wisdom emerges from the depths of sustained, solitary reflection. But we've traded this birthright for the illusion of productivity and connection. We fill every moment with podcasts, music, videos, and digital noise because we started believing that an empty moment is a wasted moment. This is like believing that silence between musical notes is a flaw in the composition. The brutal truth is that without contemplation, you're just recycling other people's thoughts and calling them your own. Real insights don't come from consuming more content, they come from digesting what you already have. They come from sitting with difficult questions until answers emerge from your own depths. But this process requires something our culture has completely abandoned: the willingness to be bored, uncomfortable, and alone with your own mind. Here's what really gets me. We've convinced ourselves that being constantly busy makes us more intelligent, but it's actually making us more stupid. Your brain needs downtime to process, integrate, and synthesize information into wisdom. When you eliminate that downtime, you eliminate the possibility of genuine understanding. You become a collector of facts rather than a generator of insights. And this loss of contemplative capacity has buried something precious. Picture this. You've got access to 2,500 years of refined human wisdom, Confucius on ethics, Marcus Aurelius on resilience, Lao Tzu on balance, but instead of diving into these treasures, you're watching someone explain life philosophy in 15-second TikTok clips. It's like having access to the world's greatest libraries and choosing to read bathroom graffiti instead. The profound insights that could genuinely transform your life are sitting right there, buried under an avalanche of bite-sized, dumbed-down content. The ancient philosophers understood something we've forgotten. Wisdom can't be fast-forwarded. It requires time, effort, and deep engagement that our modern world actively discourages. When Confucius talked about continuous learning, he wasn't talking about collecting random facts or watching educational videos. He was talking about the slow, deliberate process of integrating timeless principles into your character. This kind of transformation doesn't happen in a weekend workshop. It happens over years of patient practice. What's really tragic is how we've taken these profound teachings and turned them into Instagram quotes and self-help soundbites. We've stripped away all the context, nuance, and practical application that made them powerful in the first place. It's like taking a Beethoven symphony and turning it into a ringtone. You've technically preserved some of the original, but you've completely destroyed what made it meaningful. But here's the thing that gives me hope. These ancient insights haven't lost their power just because we've lost our attention spans. The wisdom of the ages is still there, waiting for anyone brave enough to slow down and do the real work. Marcus Aurelius faced political chaos, plagues, and wars, yet he found time for deep reflection. If he could cultivate wisdom in the middle of the Roman Empire's decline, you can certainly do it in the middle of our digital chaos. The question isn't whether wisdom is available, the question is whether you're ready to. Alright, here's where the rubber meets the road. Everything we've talked about, the attention economy, digital manipulation, performance culture, collective shadow, Nietzsche's last man, it all leads to this crucial question: what are you going to do about it? Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. You can't change the culture, but you can absolutely change yourself. And when you change yourself, you become living proof that there's another way to exist in this world. The path back to wisdom starts with what I call conscious resistance, deliberately choosing depth over surface, quality over quantity, and substance over style. This means turning off notifications and creating sacred space for uninterrupted thinking. It means reading books instead of just articles, having real conversations instead of exchanging opinions, and sitting with difficult questions instead of seeking immediate answers. It means embracing boredom as fertile ground for creativity. But here's what's really important. Reclaiming deep thinking isn't about becoming some isolated intellectual hermit. It's about developing the capacity to think clearly so you can engage more meaningfully with the world around you. When you stop being a passive consumer of other people's thoughts and start generating your own insights, you become exponentially more valuable to everyone in your life. Your relationships deepen. Your work improves. Your decisions become wiser. The beautiful irony is that by stepping away from the collective madness, you don't become less connected, you become more authentically connected than you've ever been. When you're not constantly performing for others, you can finally show up as yourself. When you're not addicted to external validation, you can offer genuine value. This isn't about rejecting modernity. It's about refusing to let modernity reject the best parts of your humanity. The question now is, are you ready to make that choice? So here we are at the crossroads, and you've got a choice to make. You can close this video and go right back to the feed that's been systematically dumbing you down, or you can take what you've learned here and start your own quiet revolution against the idolization of stupidity. Because every time you choose depth over distraction, contemplation over consumption, and wisdom over noise, you're not just improving your own life, you're becoming living proof that there's another way to exist. The question isn't whether you have access to wisdom. You absolutely do. The question is whether you have the courage to pursue it when everyone around you is choosing the easier path of intellectual mediocrity. Will you be the person who sits in silence while others fill every moment with digital noise? Will you choose the lonely path of genuine growth while others perform fake wisdom for social media likes? But before you go, and this is crucial, if this video opened your eyes to how the modern world has been manipulating your mind and stealing your capacity for deep thought, smash that like button right now. Hit it hard because it tells YouTube that content like this matters, that there are people who want substance over superficiality. And if you're ready to join a community of people who refuse to let their minds be turned into algorithmic playthings, subscribe to this channel and ring that notification bell. We're going to keep diving deep into the uncomfortable truths that most creators won't touch, the philosophical insights that can actually transform how you think and live. Here's what I want you to do right now. Identify one area where you've been choosing performance over substance, where you've been prioritizing how things look instead of how things actually are. Pick one thing and commit to changing it this week. The revolution against stupidity doesn't start with changing the world, it starts with changing yourself. Now go forth and think deeply. Your mind is waiting for you to remember how powerful it really is.